Game 3 will not only go down in Blazers history as one of the most notable games ever, it will go down in NBA history as it was the first quadruple overtime game since 1953. There's a lot to get to from this game, so we're gonna start in the fourth quarter. The Blazers had recently had a 77-67 lead, but the Nuggets were cutting into it with great possessions like this. That was terrific ball movement by Denver. CJ McCollum was also very solid down the stretch as he dropped 28 in the fourth quarter and in the overtime periods. However, Portland's defense started to fall apart. What they did really well in game 2 was double team and rotate well. Here you have a defender double teaming down on Jokic, which means that Rodney Hood needs to be ready to rotate to Will Barton at the top of the key, but Rodney Hood rotates late and it results in a wide open 3 for Will Barton. There was a couple plays exactly like this where Portland wasn't able to rotate quickly that resulted in great looks for the Nuggets. Here Zach Collins needs to force Jokic to the middle where all his help is. Jokic is able to go baseline, and while this is a great move, Zach needs to play to his help a little bit better. As I said though, CJ McCollum really turned up the heat. Here he gets his 15th dunk of the season, but Portland's defense continued to struggle. Here Hood and Collins switch the pick and roll, but Hood inexplicably leaves Nikola Jokic to try and get back to his man. Jokic cashes in the 3, and he had a few down the stretch. And then here's another play like I just showed you, where the Blazers are going to double down on Jokic, and the closest defender needs to rotate to the first pass away. The Blazers should be doubling down and rotating in sync, but they fail to do so as CJ rotates too slowly. On this play, I really like how CJ changed his pace and took his time to be able to manipulate the defense into him getting a great look inside. But for every good offensive possession, there was a bad one. Here the Blazers miscommunicate on a switch. That leaves Harkless scrambling last second to try and close out on Jokic, and that leaves a driving lane for Jokic to attack the rim. Defensive rebounding also began to become a problem for the Blazers just like it did in game 2 in the fourth quarter, and it resulted in some second chance points for Denver. Right before this, Jamal Murray ended up having Kanter on him and hit a jumper, and then here we have a little bit of deja vu as Murray cashes in again. The Blazers were switching Kanter onto Murray, and the Nuggets were taking advantage. With the Nuggets getting a 5-point lead with under 2 minutes left, Maurice Harkless stepped up and hit crucial buckets. Here he knocks down the 3, and then on the very next possession, he fakes a pass, getting Murray to jump, opening up a lane for him to attack Jokic, a very nice sidestep and floater finishing through the contact for the and one. Now he wouldn't make the free throw and give Portland the lead, but he brought him all the way back into a tie game. Here Dame plays very good defense, dislodging the ball from Barton, and then Barton picks it up out of bounds and it's a turnover. Now Portland has a chance for a 2-for-1, and Dame is able to attack the rim and get one of his patented floaters to go with only 31 seconds left. The Blazers are now up 2. Now Portland simply needs a stop, but if they give up a score, as long as it's under 24 seconds left, Portland would have the last shot. But Denver draws up a beautiful inbounds play, with the inbounder going to set a down screen for the guy in the corner to come up and take a handoff. But the down screener towards the corner actually slips the screen and gets free going baseline. This was a beautiful set, and the Nuggets ran it perfectly. Barton ends up getting a layup. He was huge down the stretch for them as well, and the Nuggets have scored with 28 seconds on the clock, which means Portland can't take the last shot. They do, however, wind down the clock and get a great look for Al-Farouq Aminu, who just was not clutch during this game. He knocks that down, and Portland is sitting in a very good spot. But Denver bails them out by accidentally dribbling and then passing back and then calling a timeout, meaning they can't advance the ball since they committed a basketball action after getting the rebound. This means after the timeout they have to inbound from deep, and the play doesn't work, and we're going into overtime. This overtime started off with Portland a little bit behind defensively. Harkless closes out way too hard on Murray, allowing him to drive and get to his floater. However, after a very good defensive possession, the clock is winding down and Portland traps Murray in the corner, giving him no options with 2 on the shot clock. He ends up turning it over, and the Blazers turn this defense into offense as McCollum hits the pull-up mid-range jumper in transition. After that, Portland ends up having a broken play, with CJ picking up his dribble and having to hand off to Mo. But CJ curls behind him and gets a handoff back, and he's actually open for 3 as Mo was able to screen Jamal Murray. But Portland just wasn't in sync defensively. Al-Farouq Aminu is the #1 help side guy, but Maurice Harkless helps off Jamal Murray far too hard. Since the start of the fourth quarter, Jamal Murray has hit 3 jumpers in a row from this area of the floor. Harkless ends up leaving him wide open, and Murray makes him pay to tie the game. And then on the dead ball right before this possession, Stotts did something that was inexcusable. He subbed in Rodney Hood to guard Paul Millsap in the low post. He had Harkless on Murray, which makes sense. He had Aminu on Jokic, which is a bit of a mismatch, but it's not inexcusable. But that means for this defensive possession, he should have subbed in a big man like Zach Collins or even Myers Leonard to guard Paul Millsap. Even Evan Turner, who's much stronger than Rodney Hood, would have been a better option than subbing in Rodney Hood. With Portland having 2 timeouts, they can call a timeout after this possession once they get the ball back, and they can sub out defensive players for offensive players. So having Rodney Hood guard Paul Millsap was inexcusable, and Paul Millsap ended up making him pay and got a very easy bucket inside. This put Denver up by 2, and Portland was in a very tough spot. However, Damian Lillard ends up playing great containment defense and actually gets a steal. He tries to score going the other way, but somehow airballs the finger roll. But Al-Farouq Aminu comes up with his biggest play of the game on the scramble, gets the ball to CJ, who cashes in with the floater to tie the game. One stop and we're headed to double overtime. With 4 seconds left, Nikola Jokic tries his best Steph Curry impression, and it doesn't work out, because although he's great, he's still Nikola Jokic. You live with that shot all day if you're Portland. So that means we're headed to a second overtime period. And I thought that was a lot, but little did I know. Dame starts this overtime off right with a nice sidestep step back, but as I said earlier, defensive rebounding is a problem for the second game in a row for the Blazers. They're gonna need to shore that up. Here the Blazers get some second chance points of their own as CJ follows his own miss and he's able to get the putback. And then CJ drives the baseline, kicks the ball out, extra pass to Dame, who knocks down the 3. Dame did not shoot particularly well during this game, but this was a huge 3 at a crucial point. Now Portland's up 5, the Moda Center's rocking, and at this point I was hoping the Blazers could just play good defense and hold on to this lead. But they could not. Here Dame gets stuck in between doubling and staying home on his man, and Will Barton gets another wide open 3. And then with the Nuggets down 2, they run some really good screening action and get one of those backdoor cuts with Jokic feeding the cutter. And just like that, Portland's lead is gone and it's a tie game once again. But CJ stepped up at crucial points during this game. This was a phenomenal move, a very tough shot that he made look easier than it actually was. But every time Portland looked like they were about to take control in an overtime period, Denver had an answer. After Denver ties it at 118 with over a minute left, nobody scores until Dame gets a chance to end the game with 4 seconds left. But he cannot recreate his first round Game 5 magic, and this game is going to a third overtime. Portland once again started off this overtime period well. Here CJ hits the pull-up mid-range jumper, but on the next defensive possession, CJ inexplicably goes under Nikola Jokic here. Jokic wasn't even setting a screen. CJ just completely left his man to curl under Jokic. It made no sense to me. But he would make it up on the other end. This was his best overtime period by far. Here he hits a step-back 2-pointer. His foot was on the line, so that just meant the next time he had a chance, he just had to make sure he pulled up for 3. And that's exactly what he did. At this point in the game, Jokic did not have the energy to get up and take away that shot, so CJ pulled it with confidence and knocked it down. Now Portland's up 4 in a similar point they were last overtime period when they were up 5 with 3 minutes left. But Denver has yet another answer. Jokic finally scores his first points of any of the overtime sessions, and then it's not shown, but then Denver was able to tie it up at 125. And after a good defensive possession, Maurice Harkless fouls Jamal Murray. I think this was a bad call. I think he got balled, but with 1 on the shot clock, Mo should just try to play solid defense instead of trying to reach for the ball. So now Denver's up 2, Portland still can't score, and they go right back to Millsap in the low post, who's hit a number of clutch buckets, and he hits yet another one to put Denver up by 4 with 30 seconds left. At this point, I thought our game was done. But here Dame gets the inbounds and easily drives past Torrey Craig, who's been a good defender to put on Lillard all series long, and Dame gets a right-handed layup. So now you're down 2, 3-second differential between the shot clock and game clock, and you gotta try and cause a turnover. And CJ does just that when he pokes the ball out of bounds. And before instant replay, it would have never been called out off Denver, but it was out off Denver as it slipped off of Murray's fingers. Great play by CJ to poke that loose and give Portland a chance. Now they have the ball down 12, and Damian Lillard again drives right past Torrey Craig. And all of a sudden, just like that, Portland's come back and the game is tied. Dame's burst on these last 2 drives was impressive to me given how many minutes he had played up to this point. game. But now Denver has a chance to win it on the last shot of triple overtime, and they end up getting a switch. Kanter on Murray, and Murray's been abusing this matchup all game long. But for some reason, Murray ends up stepping far away from the three-point line, back to about 37 feet, and tries his best Damian Lillard impression. I have no idea why Murray dribbled away and back to that range instead of trying to attack Kanter and get something from the three-point line or in. He does the Blazers a favor by settling, and that means we're headed to a fourth overtime. A 4-overtime game. That's crazy. I never thought I'd see a 4-overtime game in the playoffs. And at this point, I was emotionally drained. I was mentally destroyed. I felt like I was going actually insane because of how emotionally I was invested for this game for a solid 3.5 hours. So anyway, let's jump to the final leg of this marathon. And it starts off with Will Barton, yet again, haunting his former team. And then Al-Farouq Aminu haunting his current team with an air ball from mid-range that drops perfectly in Kanter's hands, and the Blazers are lucky to get a bucket out of that. And then if you thought Will Barton was done at this point, you were wrong. He hits a mid-range shot, and if he's able to get going, that worries me for the rest of the series because that dude is an X-factor off the bench. At the start of this overtime, I wanted Terry Stotts to substitute in Rodney Hood for Maurice Harkless because I figured Maurice Harkless, with his injury and with how gassed he was, probably wasn't going to be any better of a defender than Rodney Hood, and Rodney Hood is obviously the better offensive player. I thought it was the obvious choice. You could have Rodney attack the mismatch and Jamal Murray. I wish I tweeted this out so I could prove it, but it's what I wanted. But Terry Stotts didn't sub him in until 2 minutes left in the fourth overtime, and the only reason he subbed him in was because Maurice Harkless was cramping up. Terry Stotts probably doesn't sub in Rodney Hood, and this game might still be going on as I'm speaking. So good job, Mo. Way to cramp up. Because as you'll see, Portland just attacks this mismatch with Rodney Hood, who's fresh, against the hobbled, exhausted Jamal Murray. He gets that shot to roll in. Portland down one here. He goes right back at Jamal Murray, hits the little fadeaway. That's his bread and butter shot, and Portland at this point is up 1. But Denver has an answer for everything, and once again, it's Paul Millsap. That dude is their answer, and he hit a number of clutch shots in this game. Here he puts Denver up by 1. So now Portland needs a bucket, and they go to CJ McCollum, who's been kind of hot in the overtime periods. But at this point, he's double teamed, and he has Rodney Hood wide open on a skip pass. Hood scored the last 2 buckets, and he should have made this pass. Instead, CJ shoots his 39th shot of the game, and he misses it, but he said when he shot this shot, he saw Rodney wide open out of the corner of his eyes. So right when he gets this rebound, he kicks it back to Rodney Hood, and the rest is history.
Over 2 nuggets. Off the heel, got it back to Hood. He'll try a 3, and got it! Blazers by 2!
Rodney Hood with possibly the biggest shot of his entire career to put the Blazers up by 2 with 12 seconds left. It seems like Portland needed buckets at the end of each overtime period just to keep the game going, but at this point, they're finally feeling good up 2. They just need to stop. But the refs were having none of that. I thought this was a very weak foul call. I don't think Maurice Harkless fouled him, but Jokic flops and twirls the shot up and gets rewarded with free throws. But as Sheed would say, ball don't lie.
2 for 3 tonight, and he missed the first one.
Now you've got a foul.
So now you have Jokic make the second one, and Portland just has to take care of the ball and get free throws. They're able to inbound it to Dame, who's actually able to wind 2 seconds off the clock, but that means they're inbounding it from the backcourt, which had me a little bit more worried because what if a turnover happens? This game seemed destined to go on up until the tip-off of Game 4. But a fresh Seth Curry is easily able to outrace a hobbled, fatigued Jamal Murray to get this inbounds pass. Seth Curry cashes them both in. Denver, without any timeout, has to try the Hail Mary baseball pass, and I really like what CJ did here. He played this exactly like a smart cornerback in football would play it. Look like you're cheating up, but anticipate the long pass coming because that's their best option, and start sprinting back to intercept that pass before it's even thrown. CJ ends up getting a game-clinching interception, and the Moda Center goes crazy because Portland has pulled out a marathon of a game, a pivotal game in the series. Now they go up 2-1, and dare I say it, the conference finals are seeming more and more like an actual possibility. For somebody like me who's only 22, I've never seen Portland even get as far as they have this year. This is the third second round appearance I've seen. The first two, we only managed to win one game in each of those second round series. Now we've won two, and we have a legit chance to win it. And it doesn't even seem real to me anymore, especially after everything this team has been through. But now they gotta take care of game 4, because I'm a little bit worried. You lose that game, all of a sudden it's a 3-game series with 2 games in Denver. You have to go back on the road and win one of those games. After all this, for Denver to take back control of this series would be heartbreaking to say the least. But it's also a golden opportunity to go up 3-1 and have 3 chances to close out this series. So anyway, let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and I hope you enjoyed this Game 3 recap. So that's a wrap for this video. This has been Tori. I'll see you guys after Game 4. Peace out. Go Blazers.